Welcome to Building the Best You, a destination for you to reimagine what is possible in your life and then create it. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Jeanne Collins, and today we have Michelle Doan on. She's coming to me from beautiful Orange County, California. I'm so jealous. It's finally nice here in Connecticut, but let me tell you, California is amazing. So Michelle is going to give us two fantastic things. One is an incredible life story filled with inspiration, and two, you're going to learn about her brand, Imani, which is a skincare product, especially for women with sensitive skin. And there's so much about her products and her brand's platform that I love. So we're going to dig into that. But we are definitely going to spend some time on your story because your story is really cool. So Michelle, thank you so much for your time.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. It is your story is just cool. So let's just get into it. Okay, take us back to what brought you to the United States and how your journey started, because you haven't always been a founder of this amazing company.
Yeah, okay, first of all, I speak English as a second language. I was born and raised in Vietnam, and I was 5 when the fall of Saigon in 1975. And by 1979, my mom and our family was trying to find a better life. And she escaped by boat. And during that
Wow.
time, as a single mother, she took 6 children. Now imagine you're trying to escape Vietnam and your kids are like between the ages of 2 to 16. I have 3 older brothers, 1 younger brothers, and 2 younger, myself and a younger sister. And the trip was very perilous. And we were on this 90-foot boat with 300 other people. And
Wow.
the clothes on our back, and it was 7 days and hardly any food or water. And we didn't even know where we were going. And I was too young to even wrap my head about over the dangers of what we were going through. And now I think back and reflect back and how hard it would have been for my mom as a single mom and taking this journey and facing all the unknown, right? Just in search of a better life. So here we are on a boat. Then we land in Thailand and on the shore of Thailand. And during that time, there were so many refugees coming, leaving Vietnam, coming to either Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, that the government didn't really want more refugees to land. And I just remember, their military shooting at our boat, trying to shoo us away.
Oh my goodness.
And we had to wait until like in the middle of the night, the boat would like try to dock. Not, we couldn't even dock. So we're trying to pull closer to shore and everyone had to swim. And there was such a panic because myself, my younger brother and my younger sister could not swim. And my brothers were too little to bring us in. And my mom was panicking, was running around begging people to be able to put us on their back and swim us to shore.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is, I have chills as you're telling me that story. And I was alive. I was born in 1970 also. And it's like, I think about what my life was like in 1979. And I had my own issues, but nothing, like nothing compared to this. And it's like, that's the stuff you see on TV, but you actually lived through it.
Yeah.
And we're old enough to remember as
Yes.
well.
Yes. And that's a very typical story of most of the Vietnamese immigrants that come to the US. And we lived in refugee camp for about a year and it was very, very difficult. But the one thing that I learned was that we were living in this little shack that's made out of banana leaves, but it was on stilts. And there was this little door that you open up and it was like the crystal clear water and I can see the white sandy beaches. And that was
Yeah.
my escape from my reality, right? And
Yeah.
such
Sure.
contrasts, And finally, after 11 months, we made it to Canada. And I just remember there was really no provisions in refugee camp. You were kind of like, you had to survive on your own. So I remember my mom sewed gold and diamonds, onto my pants and shirt and said, whatever you do, do not lose, like, do not take your clothes off, do not do this. And that's how we survive refugee camp. It's that she would take diamond and gold every month and she would barter for food and shelter.
That is crazy. I mean, life-changing on so many levels, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get to Canada, and then what happens?
I get to Canada and I'm so grateful because we got sponsored by St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Burlington. And we were probably the second Asian family in Burlington at the time. And there was no ESL program. We did not speak a word of English, right?
Yeah.
And so that taught me to be super resilient. And I had to adapt fairly quickly. And I remember they put us on a special bus, like four of us, because my younger brother and sister were too small. So we would go and we were taught English by a special teacher. And that's how I got my name. She said, "Well, your name was so hard to pronounce, right? And maybe we can give you an English name." And she said, "How do you feel about Helen?" I'm like, "It doesn't feel right." And she's like, "How about Michelle?" I'm like, "Oh, I like that better." And so, and so since that day, I became Michelle.
You're Michelle.
Yeah,
And it fits you. Michelle is beautiful. It's beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
So then what happened as you're growing up in Canada?
So I'm growing up in Canada and it was shocking, right? It was shocking. And learning how to adapt. And my mother in 1983 wanted to really come to California. So my parents were divorced. She came to California and she remarried. And she's like, "Hey, do you want to come and visit?" And I'm like, "Of course I want to come and visit." So I came and visit. And so imagine I was living in Hamilton, which is like steel town, dark and gray, in the projects. We were living in like a government project. And I come to California and there's palm trees, sunshine, swimming pools. And oh my goodness. And my mother said, "Hey, do you want to stay here?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And
Yes.
June 1985, my life changed again.
Yeah,
And
that's a huge change.
that's a huge change, and then I went to high school and everything else. Uh, and, that's where I was having a lot of skin issues, and it set me on a new path, which I didn't know about.
Yeah. Well, and if you're not watching this on video, you're only listening to us. Guys, Michelle is stunning. Okay. Like, she's like absolutely perfect skin. Perfect. So, what she's going to tell you about her journey is going to blow your mind. If you can't see her, you need to jump over to YouTube and check her out because you have perfect skin. And I would have no idea how old you are or how young you are. So the journey of bad skin. I know you were a teenager, right? Which is like, of course, everybody has bad skin and kids are mean. Kids are so mean. You're not American. English is your second language. You have bad skin. I can only imagine what that does to your self-confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Pizza face was used a couple of times. I
Oh,
struggled through high school, and I grew up feeling like an ugly duckling, right? And that feeling kind of sit with you on the inside, and that brought a lot of insecurity. And I beauty was something I was really drawn into, and I went and got a degree in fashion design and merchandising, right? And all I can say is that no matter how great your hair look, no matter how, like fire your outfit looks, but if your skin was horrible and you're breaking out and you have like, bumps on your skin, you really don't feel beautiful. And I lived with
yeah,
that for a really long time. And I felt like, why am I cursed with really, really bad skin? So if I'm 15 to 28, I spent a lot of time at the dermatologist. I went through the gambit of everything from birth control to Accutane to topicals and things like that. And I was really frustrated because during the 80s and 90s, we don't have a little, you know, computer in our hand and there's no
Yeah.
Google search and there was very little information. Having a pager was like the thing, right?
Yes, of course. Yep.
Yeah. And so here I am with really bad skin. I start calling companies and I say, hey, listen, like if it's hypoallergenic why am I still breaking out? Why all of this? And I start calling companies and they would give me a number to call another company. And I say, well, if you can't help me, who can answer my questions and help me? Right. And that also another way teach me how to ask the right questions and how to ask for help. I
Mm.
ended up speaking to somebody from Merck, which is a cosmetic division, and he was kind of talking about like minerals and he was talking about all these different things. And this is 1997. I'm like, okay, but I don't know how is that going to help me and how can I take this and help my own skin. And you know how you have that one moment in your life where everything intersects and it kind of made sense. And then destinies just come and just push you through that door. Well,
Yeah.
I had one of those moments where, I went to a salon and got my hair done. And behind the counter, there was this esthetician. And this esthetician, Jean, changed my life. And this is why,
Wow.
like, I would go to beauty school and talk to estheticians. I said, because you don't know the impact that you have on other people. And I don't even think she realized the impact that she had on me in 1997 because she sat
Yeah.
behind the counter and she saw my skin and she said, I can help you. And by this time, I was so jaded. And I'm like, listen, you can't help me. If the
Right.
dermatologist can't help me and I did this and I did this and I did this and it's not working, how can you help me? And she said, if you listen to what I say, I'm gonna help you to get really great skin. And I'm like, it was her belief system, it was her conviction that made me believe. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, I'm gonna give this a try. If you're listening and you have cystic acne and you go to a facial, it's not one of relaxing one, It's not a
Totally.
relaxing, it's not a comfortable facial. Yeah, there's a lot of she used a lancet. A lancet
Oh,
is something that she break through your skin and then there's a lot of squeezing
yeah.
that
Mhm.
comes out. And then there's a lot of zapping, right? And then everything else. But did you know that it was so bad that I had to tap out sometimes in the middle of my session because my body went into this adrenaline and my heart rate. And then I was just like sweating because
Yeah.
and I was tearing and it was one of those things. And these are the pain points that I built Imani on because I don't want someone else to go through that.
Yeah.
So 3, 4 months, right? I go through these services, sitting through the pains. And after my facial, a couple of weeks, my skin would look really amazing. And then a few weeks after that, my skin would go back to the same way. And then I was telling her, and I came back with more frustration. I'm like, okay, it's temporary. Like, what is going
Right.
on? And she's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't know what you're putting on your skin when you leave here. And I'm like, that's a good question. And I said, can you? And she's like, yes, I can. And I'm like, you can? My mind was blown. I'm like, I'm gonna bring in every single product that I use and I'm gonna show it to you because I'm gonna challenge you to help me.
Right.
Like an average woman, like we use like 10, 15, 20 products and like we're exposing our bodies to so many chemicals and we don't even realize that, and that's a realization that I had. I brought everything in and then she's like, well, these don't have any ingredients because you probably threw away the box. I'm like, okay. And then
That's who keeps the box, really. Like,
like who keeps the
we
box?
don't put the product back in the box. Like,
And I didn't even know, like, if I read the ingredients, I wouldn't know. And you think about that. And then, I brought in my hair conditioner because I'm like, I had back knee. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I had back knee. Yeah, I broke out my face. I had
oh,
back
sick
knee.
everywhere.
I
Oh,
had everything, right? And
oh
so,
my goodness.
she looked at all the ingredients. She looked at all of this. And then she pulled out this book. And mind you, this is 1997. She pulled out a book and I'm like, what is that? And she's like, oh, it's a list of, comedogenic ingredients. I'm like, what is comedogenic again?
Yeah.
And she said, oh, ingredients that actually clog your pores. I'm like, there is a list?
Where's this been all my life?
That's what I'm like, there is a list? And I was like so shocked. And I'm like, show it to me. And she was explaining to me, it ranked ingredients from 0 to 5. The 0 is non-comedogenic, which doesn't clog your pores. A 5 is going to be comedone, right? It's going to clog your pores, especially if you have acne and if you have sensitive skin. I mean, that's
Sure.
like deadly for your skin.
Right.
And
Right.
and so imagine she has this list, and we have to compare, like all the products, against this list. I'm like, can you photocopy? Like, may I have a photocopy? Right. So what I did was, we didn't have an automatic ingredients checker like we do right now online,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I took that copy and I went shopping. And it was the most uncomfortable and painful experience. I went to the department store and and this is before clean beauty was even a thing.
Yeah.
So imagine asking like a big brand, it's like, hey, can I see what's in the product? Because I have really sensitive skin. And they're like,
Yeah.
what? And
Yeah. They
then
didn't care.
they didn't
Right.
care. And it
Yeah.
was real uncomfortable. And so a couple of that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to a drugstore and I'm going to spend a long time in the aisle. I was in the aisle for a really long time reading it. And I think like theft prevention was like walking right behind me. Just like,
Mm.
and wondering what I'm doing in the aisle for like
Yeah.
hours and grabbing every product and reading every single ingredient. And then I call back the company. His name is Phil Lintz from Merck, and I was like, "Hey, Phil," I'm like, "What can I do? Like, I'm just looking for like a product that won't break me out." I was looking to make a foundation, and he was telling me about pigments, and I'm like, "Okay, great, but I don't know how to formulate." He said, "Well, here's a basic formulation, and I can, locate a formulator in Los Angeles for you." And that's the start of
Okay.
the company. That's a start
Wow.
because I turned my pain point, my frustration point to my passion and mission. Like I was honest, I was pissed. I was pissed. And, I want to be the change, in the world because I felt like there was such a need for it.
Yeah. Well, and growing up the way you did, to bring this back to your upbringing, you know, your upbringing was really rough, and that makes you super resilient and
Yeah.
super tough. And like your mom sounds like the kind of woman who's going to raise you that like you're not taking no and you're not going to settle and you're going to fight for more. And she brought you to leave that country and bring you to better other countries for greater opportunity. So you're not just going to sit back as companies keep telling you we can't help you, we can't help you, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Eventually you will, it's in your personality, take charge.
Yeah.
And and I love that you did that. And what's so crazy is at the time that you did that, not only were clean products were not a thing, there also was not the correlation that we have now between our lifestyle and our environment
Yeah.
and what we put into our bodies and how that impacts our skin. Like we didn't consider the skin as like the largest organ, and
Yeah.
we didn't
Yeah.
have these initiatives that you need to drink water and that you need to put sunscreen on and not eat products with processed hydrogenated oils and things like that. I remember as a kid, it was like, if you had acne, it's like, you must eat too much pizza, Okay.
Or fried chicken.
Right, when no one talked about hormones, no
Yeah.
one talked about any of the things that really do impact our skin, so the education now is so much greater than it was back then. So it's like you're literally out in the ocean by yourself because none of that data was available back then. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, I've been called a hard-headed
Yeah.
woman all my life, and I think that really serves me really well because I just kept on marching. I just kept on
Yeah.
marching. I didn't take no for an answer. I'm like, this doesn't make sense, and let's figure it out. And that's one of these, character building moments in my life that built such resilience because
Yeah.
I feel like anything is possible.
How long did it take you until your skin cleared up? Like, not just temporarily. How long did that take?
It took a long time. It took like for me to really experiment because we would just doing makeup, right? So we were supplying to a lot of the makeup artists because we're so close to Los Angeles. So we supply to a lot of the makeup artists that use on TVs. And I remember I was so excited when like our products was using on celebrities on TV
Yeah.
because they too have sensitive skin. I was like,
Sure.
wow. And
Imagine.
so that was really, really cool. But the whole skincare part came later, right? And, my skin was able to kind of minimize a little bit, but I'm still looking for skincare that really worked, that didn't really break me out. And and
Mhm.
and from that need, I created like our first kind of skincare hybrid. It's called our Perfect 10 because it has 10 different organics in it. And it's a primer serum and a moisturizer in one. Because my thing was like
Amazing.
trying to reduce how many products I'm putting on my skin and kind of minimize like the impact because my skin was so
Yeah.
sensitive. And
Sure.
so, yeah. And so I created that product and became a really good hit. It's a cult product,
Yeah.
Imani. And then I'm like, okay. And then 10 years ago, K beauty was really, really big. It was coming on, and I'm like, this is a great interesting thing to take a look into as we were developing our skincare. And now I spent 3 years developing natural skincare.
Right.
And you know
Yeah.
what I find?
What?
Natural skincare is really great if you just want like kind of conditioning, moisturizer, and kind of moisture balance. But when you're over 35, 45, 55, you're like, okay, I need a little help, little oomph.
It's about more than that.
I
Yeah.
like I
Uh-huh.
like I need something that yeah, doing this because
Yeah.
when you
Uh-huh.
turn 50, things start to hang,
They
people don't
do.
tell you about.
It's the reason why facelifts and all those things are what they are and have been around for so long because it happens.
Yeah. And so, we dive into Korean beauty. So Korean beauty was coming on the scene like 10 years ago, and they were like the best in technology. So I went to Korea and talked to all these labs. The personal thing that I have with Korean beauty was that it had a lot of fragrances in all of their products. And
Mm.
fragrances in beauty has over 26 allergens. And the allergens are skin irritation, desensitization, cause your skin to, of course, obviously inflame and irritate, right?
Right.
And then it had a lot of parabens in it. So
Mm.
the language barrier was huge because I'm trying to talk about clean beauty with very traditional Korean beauty formulators. And I said, hey, can we make it paraben free? Can we take it out fragrances? I'm like, why you want to do that? Why would you want to change this formula? Like, why would you do this? And then I explained, I said, because I'm very specific about what I'm doing and this is what we're looking at. So we talked to so many companies. Like once again, before when I started like getting into the makeup, it's talking to a bunch of people and then talking to a bunch of skincare Korean beauty companies. And then I found this one tiny little company. And they said, oh, Michelle, we own 13 different patents to process raw materials. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? Explain it to me. And then basically it's a fermentation process, right? This is like an ancient thing that for the Koreans, they do it for like the kimchi and all of these things. They ferment it, right? But they
Yeah.
convert
Yeah.
this into a science for skincare. And what this does is that this process break down the molecules into smaller molecules, so it
Mhm.
absorbs better into your skin. So instead of like 200 parts per million, you can get it down to 2,000 parts and sometimes 10,000 parts per million. It just depends on what type ingredients it is.
Wow, and we all know fermented products are so good for your diet and your gut and, like, all the things. It's now everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Did that take you right into, "Okay, I'm gonna have this vegan clean line of products," or was there another step before you even got there?
Oh, so we started the company in 1998, did a lot of trade shows. That's how like we're able to find these partnerships. And then I believe like if you're building a business, relationships is everything and your word is everything, right? And so I'm a people person. I build relationship and I put my heart into everything I do. People will always help me in some ways, it's like, oh, have you talked to this person? Have you done this show? Have you met this distributor? And other distributor that work with us is like, oh, you should meet this distributor in this country. And so that's how we grew as a brand. And in 2008, I was so excited because Macy's offered us 100 counters, and I was like,
Wow.
and I'm like, I don't know how to launch 100 counters because I knew my limitations were, and I like
Yeah.
I am this little self-funded company,
Yeah.
which is we're still self-funded people, and I can't do that. And the buyer looked at me. Her name was Christine, and she said, I've never had a brand that sits here and that says, I'm only going to give you 50 stores instead of 100 stores.
Yeah,
And
really.
I was going, "No," because I want to make sure I can walk before I can run, right? I was so
Yeah.
excited. I'm like, oh, this is going to take us to the next level.
Totally. Yes. Game changer.
Yeah. We launched November 2007.
Congratulations. Did you still only do 50 stores or did you do more?
We only did 50
You only did
stores. And what
57.
happened in
Okay.
2008? When the
Recession.
economy, yeah, the recession,
Mhm.
so timing has to do with everything. And
Yep.
so, yeah, licked my wound. And
Yep.
then, but the relationship was that she left Macy's and she went somewhere else. And she called me up and she's like, hey, do you want to do this again? I'm going to give you 200 stores. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And we were, let's do it. And the store was called Stage, and was like a chain of department store that's in the Southern Belt. And then around 2010, and I went to her and I said, hey, I want to pivot the company. And, at the time I was a vegan. And then there were so many animal byproducts like lanolin and, carmine and things like that. And like snail mucin was on the thing. And I'm like, oh,
Oh,
personally, it's not for me. And our brushes were made out of like animal hairs. And then when I learned how they were sourcing the hairs, I'm like, oh, and
yeah.
yeah, like, these, like,
Yeah.
sourcing you don't really
You
think
don't
about.
wanna know.
You
Yeah,
don't
right.
wanna
All the
know,
things
and
you
then,
don't wanna know. You don't wanna know.
yeah, and then, you have to dye and sanitize these hair, and then you put it on your face, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I didn't realize that, and that was a really big shocker for me, and I said to her, and we're actually one of the first brand that did vegan back in 2010, and I said, "Hey, Christine, I'm gonna rebrand, and I'm gonna call it Imani Vegan Cosmetics," and she's like, "That's the most terrible idea." Like, no one's gonna understand it, like, da, da, da. I'm like, I feel this is right with me, like, this I feel like this is where we need to be. And even 2010, clean beauty wasn't really a thing either. And I remember doing
Yeah,
trade
not yet.
shows, and we said, "Vegan cosmetics," and people would walk, and they would be like, "Oh, what? Explain this to us again?"
Yeah, sure. Of
Yeah,
course.
and so it's been a real blast. Like, there's been 2, 3 evolution to where we are as a brand because I don't believe in, like, comfort, and I don't believe in just, like, being stagnant, right?
Yeah.
You have to solve tomorrow's problem, right? And having a 3rd child at my 30 when I was 35, my skin jacked up again, and
Yeah.
then when I went through menopause and I was like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
And that's why, I created a double serum system
Yes.
because I need extra help.
Right, yeah, because you've gotten to those stages where you realize that women in those stages need different and you do, you have different bundles and different products for different skin types, different you have a quiz, it's like, where are you? What are your and I think it's the way that you position it for your brand is really insightful for people to understand that our skin is changing just like we are, and our skin is aging,
Mhm.
and you might move from one place to another, and that is going to change your environment, and your
Yeah,
skin's going to change, and your needs are going to change, and your
yeah,
amount of stress impacts it. How inflamed your body is at different stages, all the inflammatory foods, like inflammation, ages you. And so you have a lot of resources actually on your website that are very educational to help women understand. I want to say the aging process, but
yeah.
it is true to understand how your skin is aging and how the needs change.
I mean, we're a beauty brand, but I'm more about that. I'm about creating a life that I'm really excited to live. And
Yeah.
I am not preaching. I'm just sharing what I find, at 56, a mother of three and a grandmother of three. Yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot on my own dime.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot in my own dime, and I lean into these stories, and I'm like, "What am I learning from this?" And, I wanna share that. I'm like, "Hey, this is what I've tried for many years, and this is what works," right? And I
Right.
believe in simplicity, and that's my whole philosophy for business and for life. We tend
Yeah.
to overcomplicate things. We complicate our lives. We complicate our thought process. We complicate, our SOPs in businesses. And we, complicate our skincare where we really only need two or three, four good products.
Yeah. And I do love that. You have that super cleanly on your website. It was sort of like, here's your three-step process. And then I think it was like, I don't want to say it was older women. It was sort of like, if you're like, depending on your hormones, you might need four.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just kind of like a nice way. I felt like, oh, you're talking menopause. You're talking me. You said
Yeah.
it in a really nice way without like, making me feel like I'm bad that I'm in this. But
Yeah.
you really were like, this is all you need is right here. And I think in the skincare industry, I mean, you walk into Sephora and it's like 1,000
Yeah.
products. And I know me personally, I mean, I have drawers full of
Yep.
product. And, you're kind of convinced that you need all these things. And a lot of people have no idea what's in their products, myself included. I try to lean towards organic and healthier. But when I was doing the research for the show, I was like, vegan. Huh. Nobody else is talking about being vegan. So what is in all my other products that I think are
Yeah.
healthy because they don't have parabens and they're not tested on animals and all these things, but none of them say they're vegan. So, oh my goodness, what now? It's like a whole new world of things that exist in the skincare industry that actually probably isn't good for you.
Yeah. So we screen everything. Vegan is one way. We taking clean to the next level, right? Then we add in the Korean technology piece as another level. And then I created what I call the three P's in skincare to help our clients, whether you're looking at Imani or where you're looking for skincare for yourself, right? The 3P, the first P is potency. Potency is
Mm.
like the percentages of the active ingredient is in a formula that they're pitching you. Okay? It's either vitamin C or whether it's something more active. And you want to know what is the percentage. A lot of consumer don't know that I can have a brand can have a fraction of a vitamin C and still call it a vitamin C serum. And when they have a lot of fillers of something else, well, anything in a fraction is not really going to help you and help your skin. But if you have too much vitamin C, it can actually causes your skin to irritate. So understanding the formulation. So let's just say vitamin C, if you have sensitive skin, 9 to 10% is actually a really good level to have it in your skincare. It's enough to give you the changes that you want to brightening and firming and toning without
Hmm.
causing redness, irritation, and everything else. So more is not always better. It's like understanding your skin biology. Right.
Yeah.
Secondly, the second P is I call it the penetration. So, what is the delivery system? So, if you're like looking at a brand on TikTok or on Meta or whatsoever, and you want to reach out and you said, okay, what is the percentages of the active ingredients in that? And then what is your delivery system? How are you going to get those nutrients into my skin? Right.
Mm,
And so that's
interesting.
where our, the Korean technology comes in, the fermentation comes in, because any brand that knows what they're doing, they are very transparent. Because, I'll say our ginseng is 2,000 parts per million. The fermented ginseng in our miracle serum for girls who have really oily skin and large pores is going to help to that reduction. So 2,000 parts per million is going to give you that beautiful absorption, right?
Yeah.
So that, and then the third one, it hasn't been proven. I love clinical studies with real customers' reviews, right? And
Yeah.
so authentic reviews, and that's what we should buy. And not just about price point, not how great it is or not how it's been promoted, but let's use our brain and let's use the three P's when we're, spending our hard earned money buying skincare.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. That keeps it super simple, by the way, which also aligns with everything you said before about like not trying to overcomplicate it. And I also think that for so many women, it is so overwhelming and there are so many choices. And I think skincare is a perfect example of more advertising, more
Mm,
cost, prettier box, prettier
mhm,
package does not equal better in
yeah,
any fashion for anything in the beauty space. It does not equal better at all. And I think women need to take control of their own skincare products and what they're putting on their body because you're starting to care about what you put in, but really, like, but what are you also putting on?
yeah,
Like that's a huge thing. And just because it's expensive or it's a celebrity's product
yeah,
doesn't make it better
better.
necessarily for you. You
Yeah,
need to do some research. You need to do some research, just like you do for your hormones, quite honestly. It's the same.
yeah,
Same thing.
yeah. I don't know if you know that like an average woman uses like 5 pounds of beauty products per year. Think about like how
Yeah,
much
sure, of
body
course.
lotion that we're
Yeah,
using, how much fragrances, how many
yeah,
mineral
yeah,
oil, petrochemicals, fragrances we're actually putting on our body. Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for a good, smelly, body lotion, but now I'm like opting for like body oils because, yeah, menopause makes my skin super dry, which I've never really experienced before. And
yeah,
so just, taking control and asking the right questions,
yeah.
and kind of like minimize the impact of what we're exposed to.
Yes, for sure. So I have a question. What does Imani mean? I'm sure
Ah!
it means something. What does it mean?
Okay, so Imani spells Emani, right?
Yeah.
And in the middle, so if you look at the three letters in the middle, it's spell man, right?
Yep.
And what I feel like women were strong as our male counterpart, but maybe even stronger. Because who else would do a full-time job, run a company, have kids, clean house, and taking our kids to games, and then on weekends host parties, and oh, that's just the top 10% of our list. And so that's like my homage to like our inner strength and outer beauty. And our logo is
Mm.
a little flower, right? And so
Yeah.
it's about inner strength and outer beauty as who we are as a species.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, that's powerful. I love that. I love a brand name that has a meaning and a story. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So can we talk one second before we run out of time? Can we talk about glass bottles?
Oh.
I was like, "Oh my," like, it really made me take a pause and
Yeah.
look at what was in my cabinet
Yeah.
when I saw on your website that your brand only uses glass bottles, and I was like, "Well, of course, I only use glass, like, I don't use plastic for anything in my kitchen for my food," but then I was like, huh, let's open the cabinet in the bathroom
Yeah.
and the 30 products that are in there and how many of those are in glass. And I'm
Yeah.
proud to say more than half of them are.
Yeah.
So that made me feel good. But even some of the ones that I consider to be super pure, some of them were not. So talk to us about your philosophy about glass bottles and how you accomplish that.
Yeah. Glass is absolutely sustainable because you can recycle glass like infinitely. Secondly, I feel like people don't really think about things that come in plastics and things like that depends on the formulation. The oils and things like that that's in a formula can actually break down the plastic in the tubes and things like that. So, when you're looking at packaging from a packaging standpoint, they'll tell you like how many layers is in that tube, right? So it's either a 3-layer tube or a 5-layer tube and how the tube is really treated. And we
Mhm.
use glass because it really preserves the serums. And our serums has such high concentration of active ingredients. And then we also, it's not super clear. So what that does is that it helps from UV breakdown
Yeah,
and things like that. So it's just another level of like purity. And then once you're done with Imani, you can actually take the glass, rinse it out, and just throw it in your recycling bin. And then our pumps and everything else are plastic. And then you can just put it in a plastic bin.
that's so great. I love that. That's a commitment to the environment. I love that. But that can't be cheaper. That can't be cheaper. That has to probably cost more, right? From a
Yeah.
manufacturing perspective, it can't be cheaper.
Yeah, it costs more for everything. It's cost more to ship. It's cost more to make. And then another thing that we were doing is because our bottles are kind of heavy because they're really thick. And then I'm traveling with three, four of our glass bottle. And I'm like, oh my God, this bag is really heavy. And so I went back to our team. I'm like, hey, can we make this bottle with less glass? And they're like, well, it's going to cost a lot of money for us to create that custom mold. And I'm like, let's do it. So in July, you're going to see like Imani, same glass bottle, same everything, but we use like less glass. So we took a lot of glass out of the bottom. So 20%, exactly 20% less plastic and glass going to be in the
Yeah.
packaging, but it's still going to have all that recyclability. So we constantly review how people live and then how we recycle and what can we do to really help the environment.
Honestly, it's like you're using real life experience because glass is great, but you're right, glass is heavier. And when you travel, like that's a problem. It really is. So I love that you're willing to invest in that. And
Yeah,
kudos to you because not every company, especially in the beauty business, is willing to take that investment because that does hurt your bottom line.
yeah,
It just does. That's the economics. And when everything is costing more and tariffs and imports and shipping and everything costs more, it's hard sometimes to stand on that ethical line. So kudos to you for doing that. I
yeah.
appreciate that a lot. So what's on your bucket list for the brand for the future?
On the bucket list is I would love to sell Imani to every woman that is having problematic skin. That's on my bucket list. Like I want people to really try it out. And sometimes you can try different, serum because you just never know like how your skin, will react in a good way, right? And so our
Right.
thing is that knowing that I make it from a place of love and I want to make people feel beautiful, but I love the challenge of, solving sensitive skin and this whole menopause things. It's like, wow. Yeah, and make things simplify and just, and that's it. It's just really simple. And then to be able to live and enjoy the journey. Yeah, I'm building a
Yes.
company, but it's about the relationship. I love my teams. I love our customers, and I live in gratitude. That's my bucket
It's a
list.
labor of love. You can tell it's a labor of love, and when you love what you do for a living, then it's not work, and then it becomes part of who you are and what fuels you is to be able to solve these problems and create these products and to make women feel confident and beautiful. Like, what an incredible gift that is to do for a living. I think that's amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanna make sure we cover off on? Did I miss anything?
Just something I wanted to share from my personal experience is that, beauty is not always like the surface. I think it also stems from within. So you had touched on it a little bit earlier, when you're talking about like stress, and when I was building the company, I didn't really pay a lot of attention to my health. I was operating from, a fight or flight mode because I thought that was my superpower. But
Yeah.
that in itself had an effect on my body. So I'm living with like chronic inflammation, right? And yeah, and a leaky gut, which is kind of crazy. And so the way I look at it, meditation and state of mind and life perspective really help to shape us because it has to start from within. And then just like the self love, the self love and give yourself some grace.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and it's your whole body. I mean, your skin is your largest organ, and so it's you have to think about not only what goes on it, but what's going into your body and what's your everything about your lifestyle, your mind, body, spirit, all of that
Yes.
matters. Your environment matters. What you're around, the toxins in your environment, that impacts inside your body and your skin as well. It's a major impact on all of us. So I love that you talked about that because inner beauty is important. The outer beauty definitely helps with the self confidence, but you need the inner beauty too. You need to
Yeah.
do the inner work too. And you have to make yourself a priority
Yeah.
because if you don't, no one else is going to do it for you. Like you talked about the busyness, like no one else is going to do it for you if you don't step up and do it for yourself. Like
Yeah.
you have to put yourself first in life. Absolutely. It's one of my huge missions is to help women feel comfortable putting themselves first and making themselves a priority in the mix of what they're doing. They can still be successful. So thank you for touching on that. I appreciate it.
Wow. I love that.
Yes. So before we run out of time, I love to ask my guests if there's a book or books, they can recommend more than one, that they recommend that the listeners read, something that's impacted you either personally or professionally that you think is really insightful. So I'm so curious because you're a science person and you're a wellness person and you're so many things and a business person. I am so curious what you'd like to recommend.
With so many decades in doing what I'm doing, the biggest battle is not from the outside. The biggest battle is actually the inside. And right now, I may not have an MBA, but I'm working on a self mastery PhD.
Ooh, good
And
for you.
and one of my favorite things that I'm working on is mindset.
Hmm.
And I used to have so many thoughts, and I also have ADD. So imagine as women, we have already so many thoughts, so many judgments, so many like to do lists. It's running in the back of our mind all the time. And so my favorite book is Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph
Yes,
Nguyen.
it's a
And
great one.
yeah, I'm more like an audio versus a reader. So I listen to it while I'm driving and I listen to when I go on my walks. And
Yeah.
that helps to really shape the foundation. And it helps me to understand my mind.
Ah, which is so powerful. Honestly, understanding your mind and having an awareness of what your mind is saying is so incredibly important. And understanding, questioning your mind. Like, is that
Yes.
really true? Is
Yeah.
it really true? I've had so many guests come on and say that are in the either in the spiritual realm or even in the doctor, like psychological realm. It's like, just because your mind is thinking it doesn't make it true, and learning to pay attention to that narrative and question that narrative to really find what is true or where you really want to be in that dialogue with your mind is so powerful. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. That is,
Yeah.
Michelle, you have been such an amazing guest. You have incredible energy. So thank you. I am totally in the middle of menopause at 55, turning 56. I am 100% going to buy your products. I'm going to keep following. I'm going to see what you guys keep coming out with. And I can't wait to try your products for women my age because, we all have these things that like your neck shows your age more than anything.
Lymphatic massage, girlfriend. Lymphatic
I do
massage.
that. I
Yes.
do that, and I have my I use my brush every morning, and, like, it's a
Yes.
newfound thing. It definitely helps, but, like, it's work. You have to really
Yeah.
commit to as my daughter would say, you gotta commit to the bit of, like, actually doing something about it.
But it
So
feels good. It feels
it
good.
does.
It feels
It
good.
does. It
So,
definitely it
yeah.
feels good, and it's good for so many things, and inflammation, I love that you talk about that a bunch on your website, and I think I'm gonna link your website and your products and everything. Your website is also just a great resource, and so I love that you've taken a lot of the knowledge that you have and the research that you've done, and you've made that in really digestible language that people can understand, in terms of what the products are and how they use them and how they absorb and how they work and how they're good for you. So, I thank you. You took something that's super complex and you made it really easy to understand. So, I thank you so much for being a guest and we'll stay connected on social media and really wishing your brand all the best. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been great fun. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Building the Best You. If you are ready to take a deeper dive into transforming your life, check out my Empowerment Fundamentals course on my website, houseofgermar.com. Thank you, and I will see you next week with another inspiring guest.